Hello, hello, and welcome to day 4. We have a little visitor, but I don't know if you can see her down here. But today we're going to talk about a very important topic that I think is one of the biggest confusions for a lot of people in general and also for a lot of women, and that can really trip us up in our fitness journey, and that is nutrition.
Nutrition indeed.
So what we're gonna ask ourselves today is what to eat to get results. And this is also a question that we often get from women. They tried a lot of different diets, nothing has really worked. Now they try the next diet, and the question is always, what should I eat? How much should I eat? Do you give a meal plan? Like, how do I do this? So let's dive a bit into that. So, what should you eat?
Well, again, remember, we're here because it's about shape and strength training. So every piece of information I give is with that goal in mind. So I'm just going to remind you all that what we mentioned before, different goals will require a different outcome and a different approach. However, you're here because we believe, and you believe, that you want to see something different in the mirror, and you have different areas of the body you want to enhance, and you want to get stronger, you want to empower yourself. So that's all going to be based on strength and muscle building, right?
Yes.
So with that in mind, what you should eat is basically whole foods, real simple, and focus on your protein intake. That's it in a nutshell. So you don't really have to worry about a specific diet. Do you need to do Whole30? Do you need to do paleo? Should you do intermittent fasting? If it's something that's trending in social media, ignore it. What you need to focus on is whole foods. What I mean by whole foods, in case you don't know, is something that looks exactly the way you would find it in nature, as close to that as possible. So if you're going to get any kind of meat, you know that came directly from the cow, the chicken, or whatever, and it's not
if
a
it's
process.
not a sausage.
Yeah, it's not a processed entity that has gone through a bunch of different steps, right? And the same thing for your plant-based products. The rice out in nature looks like the rice you're about to eat. Your plants, like fruits and vegetables, the same. So try to avoid as best as possible the pre-packaged, boxed kind of things, and definitely like the fast food stuff. Not saying you can't have it, but it should be like maybe 20% of your diet or what you eat on a daily basis. So if you focus on whole foods and in their natural state and aiming for that protein being a key piece of the puzzle, then that's a good baseline of where to start or get started. It's more detailed for each person, but that at least gives you an understanding of a base general line.
Well, while you were talking, I actually had to think, oftentimes we actually know what we need to eat, but it's still difficult, and there's still a lot of confusion around that. And I also think that's because of all these different diets that they, as you said, are trending on social media, or
Right.
that somebody brought out and said, like, oh, this is the best way to get in shape, to lose fat, whatever. So, all right, we're probably going to go a bit down the rabbit hole here.
Yeah, kind of figured that.
But let's go back a little bit. You talked about different diets, and diet in the sense, we can look at it as keto and paleo. Thank you. I'm German, so we pronounce it a bit differently. So you have all this, but also diet just means in general how you eat.
Right.
And so for somebody who is watching this right now and is clueless how to get started with this, how to pick what's best for you, how the diet that you should eat.
Yeah, so that goes back to what I just said. So you focus on whole foods, and then now if you're looking at your meal that you're about to consume, one, it's whole food, so it's things you can recognize readily in nature. And then two, if you look at your plate, you would section it so that we'll say half is some form of a protein, be that chicken, fish, beef, pork, whatever, some kind of protein. And then you take the other half, and that quadrant up at the top would be like your vegetables. So any kind of cooked, raw, doesn't matter, any kind of vegetable that you like. And then the other quadrant, now since we're in Asia, we'll just call it rice. I'm not even going to worry about the rest of the stuff. We'll just put rice. Now currently, probably one of the reasons you're not seeing the results you want is because that is flipped in Asia. Half the plate is rice, the other part is maybe a meat and then a vegetable or something like that. Or if you're definitely more like a vegetarian or vegan, then it's all rice and vegetables, and therefore you're missing the protein piece. And as we touched on previously, protein is the most important aspect. So if you just wrap this concept in your head of 50% protein on your plate to start, then going through our program, you'll find ways to fine tune things, but that'll give you a good baseline. 50% protein, 25% vegetable, 25% rice. That's a diet.
Yeah, I think that's a really good starting point, and something I would like to add is the sustainability aspect. And I'm not talking about the environment here, I'm talking about making it sustainable for you. So let's just say you try some random diet and you can keep this up for like 1 week, but it just really doesn't work with your lifestyle, then this particular diet is not sustainable for you. And we always look at something where you can make a lifestyle out of it. So whatever you are eating, it needs to be available to you and something that you can eat over a long time. So if it's, some crazy superfood that is imported from Peru, then it might be, the packaging might be awesome and gives you like all these benefits, but if it's so expensive that you can't really buy this a lot of times, is it really that sustainable? Right. Is it really gonna help you? Well, probably not, because you can only buy it one time and then you have to go back to other foods. So it's, in our perspective, always better to rely on what you already have available here and then make a fitting diet out of that. While you were talking, I had to think of something else that a lot of people ask me, and that's about supplements. And supplements, I think for women, we talk mostly about protein shakes or protein powders and meal replacements. What about those? Like, do we need those? What's up with them? Should we get those?
Right, yeah. The answer is actually in the name. So supplement means you are supplementing or adding to something that already exists. So if you don't have this foundation in place that I just mentioned, you really can't supplement because there's nothing to build from. So the short answer for supplements will be no. And then the other one, the name is meal replacement. Well, why are you replacing a meal if you don't have a foundation in place to actually be sustainable in the first place? So that's another no-go. So if you find a trainer or someone out there pushing these down your throat, they're just making money off of you, and you do not need them. You need the foundation in place, like your team captain said, that's sustainable to get your results. And then over time, when things come up, maybe life gets busy, you don't have access to certain things, you're traveling, sure, throw in a protein shake. Throw in a meal replacement because you don't have time or access to get these whole foods that I mentioned. But overall, 80% of your diet or what you consume on a daily basis should be these whole-based foods. And supplements and fast food and processed foods can be in that 20% range.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, just now I had some conversations with different women, and actually when you think about it, meal replacements are kind of dangerous for you. And I don't mean like health-wise, so to speak, but they don't set you up to be sustainable. So you might see a little bit of progress, and then at some stage you stop the meal replacement, go back to your normal food, but you actually haven't changed your eating habits. And because you just replaced one meal, normally what happens is that you go back to your old self and probably beyond that. So you might gain back weight. You're gonna get puffy or whatever. And so in that sense, I actually think it's quite dangerous if you only rely on meal replacements, because again, you're gonna be disappointed with the progress that you're seeing over a long period of time, because you're gonna go back to where you started if you don't change the foundation.
And 9 times out of 10, that progress you're seeing is artificial anyway. So if you look at what's in, this is going more detail, but if you look at what's in a meal replacement, it's mostly just carbohydrates. And we already told you for shape, you need protein and you need proper training. So typically the results that most people are seeing from their meal replacement is a scale number. And that gives you artificially positive feedback. It's like, oh, it's working. But like I mentioned before, you're actually just getting skinny fat, because you're telling the body, oh, we don't need this muscle, because you're not feeding it protein, and then you're not training it to tell it to keep it. So therefore the body is actually getting rid of it, and you're underfeeding the body in regards to nutrition, because those meal replacements typically don't have the nutrients you need. So those three things together will dramatically start to reduce that number on the scale. But what you've done is actually make your body more fragile. You've increased your fat and decreased your muscle. And then, as your team captain said, when you go away from those, you can't afford them no more, or you just don't want them anymore, then you're going to go back and gain more weight a lot faster because your metabolism is slowed, your muscle mass has dropped off, and you've only been eating pretty much carbohydrates and fat.
Yeah, I was actually just looking at a meal replacement that one lady sent to me, and it was shocking. So if you currently have a meal replacement at your house, then please look at the ingredients list and the nutritional chart, and actually look what it says for sugars and what it says for protein, and look at the serving size. Because I was shocked, the protein was really low. It had like only 5 grams of protein in one serving. So if you have a normal protein powder, that's around 24 grams of protein in one serving. And then the sugar was really high with 8 grams. It's like, wow, that's a lot of sugar. And the carbohydrates was even higher than that. So really look at that, look at anything that can be related to sugar in the ingredients list, because you can really waste your money on this and you think it's doing you good, but it actually doesn't.
For sure.
So that's really a topic of its own.
Yeah.
We can dive deeper into that. And of course, if you have more questions to that, if you want us to look at a label or so, then please let us know in the community chat. But I want to go back to protein a little bit. And because it's so important, how can we get enough protein? What should we look for?
Yeah, so the simple way without any math is what I already shared with you all, is that 50% of your plate. And I know in Asia there's the sharing of food and maybe you have soup, stuff like that, so maybe a little harder to tease out. But if you were to put this on a plate when you're gathering from different dishes, just make that plate into a half and then quadrants for the other 2, and that's a good place to start. Now if you're looking for a specific number, then you can look at basically what's known as 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So if you weigh 50 kilograms, you need about 100 grams of protein. Now this is a little more complex because you need to find out how much protein is in the food you're eating. For instance, a 100-gram serving size of chicken will contain about 20 to 30 grams of protein. And each food is different, so that's why this requires way more granular details for each person. So the most simplest way is what I just shared with you. Find the proteins that you like. So it goes back to what your team captain said about sustainability. So find the proteins you like: chicken, beef, fish, pork, whatever. You're eating these meals with your family, you're out to eat, whatever it is. Put that on half your plate. The next quarter, put the vegetables, and the other quarter, put your rice. And then what I tell people, if you're still hungry after that, add more protein first. Still hungry after that, add more vegetables. Then if you're still hungry after that, add more rice. Again, I know in Asia, it's like rice first, and then add the other stuff. I'm hungry, I'll have some more rice. So if you just do these 2 things, you'll see dramatic results without any deep dive into the nutrition side, and get more progress than you got before.
And one tip that really helped me was to focus on protein. So you also just mentioned that, like, do the protein first, increase the protein first. And whenever I made my meals, I actually looked at protein first and then basically put the other things around it.
Right. That's why we started with 50%. So you are hitting that right off the jump for every meal. Yeah.
There's another topic I want to scratch on a little bit, and that's the amount to eat. And I know, not just I think, but I know that that's what trips up a lot of women, because especially if you want to lose some fat, and to be honest, also a lot of women think they need to lose fat, but they actually don't. They just need to increase some muscle mass. But a lot of women actually eat too little.
Yeah.
So can you go a bit into that from your coach experience?
Regarding eating too little?
So eating too little, and why is that actually, why it can be counterproductive for women, and why it's not good for women to eat too little. It's also when they want to lose weight or fat.
Yeah, so that's multifaceted. So for one, women typically fall into this trap of eating too little because again they're focusing on the number on the scale and they think by reducing the calories that they can get that number to go down. And you remember me talking previously that women are designed for a very specific task in regards to humanity, and that being birthing children and ensuring that that child can actually grow to be a functioning adult, meaning it lives off the mother in the womb as well as when it comes out for a couple of months. That being said, your body actually is designed to try to save as many calories and as much fat as possible because in its little primitive brain, it doesn't know if you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 100 children, whatever. So it wants you to be ready. And to do that, you have to have fat on your body. And when you reduce calories, your body actually is designed to slow down the other processes, back to what we talked about, skinny fat. So it goes into a survival mechanism that tries to stop you from losing any additional fat because fat is essential for your survival as well as the potential child, because the brain doesn't know if you're gonna have one or not. So by eating too little, you actually send your body down that path of skinny fat, and it's gonna get rid of the shape that you're trying to build in the first place. So that's number one. Number two, if you are successful at actually reducing too much body fat, women can fall into what's known as amenorrhea, or loss of your menstrual cycle. Your period basically gets abnormal. And that's another sign that your body's telling you that you have gone too far down the fat loss rabbit hole. You need to get more fat on your body because you essentially couldn't survive or have a child safely, essentially is what the body's trying to tell you. And the other reason, I guess, that women eat too little or focus on eating too little would be because what they think they need to do in regards to their goals. So it's not that they're restricting foods, but they're actually eating specific kinds of foods. So it's like, oh, I'm going to have the salad, I'm going to have this. So they're eating these whole foods that I mentioned before, but if you're eating a lot of fibrous foods like salads and vegetables, then you're going to feel full very quickly. So you may think and tell yourself, I'm eating a lot, because a salad, a 500 gram, let's call it a kilo size salad is a lot, and you will indeed feel full for sure. But you've given your body zero protein to build muscle and very little carbohydrates to store fat and create fat. So what you're again telling the body is, we're in a famine, there's not enough calories going on even though your stomach is full. So that's kind of ties into how women end up eating too little and going down this skinny fat rabbit hole.
And I was just thinking, and I'm going to add this from my own experience. So when I wanted to gain muscle, and again, gaining muscle equal gaining shape, I was eating too little, and I just didn't know any better. And I was doing a lot of exercise, I was burning off everything. And to gain muscle, we actually need calories. We need protein, but we also need enough food so that we can actually grow the muscles and the shape that we want. And so you can do everything right in the gym, but if you don't eat enough, you're still not going to see progress because your body just doesn't have the fuel to add the clay, right? So that's another thing why it's super important to also look at your nutrition. And actually tomorrow we're gonna dive a bit deeper into meal tracking, because it's very important for you to get a better understanding of your nutrition and make better choices for yourself in your lifestyle. And I always say it gives you peace of mind for your nutrition, so that you can really be clear, okay, I'm doing the right thing, I'm eating the right amounts, I'm eating the right food. So we're gonna do that tomorrow. But as always, look into your workbook, because we have prepared some questions for you as well. So do those to get the most out of it. And if you have any questions, or as I said, if you want us to check any labels or so, then just let us know in the community chat.
Sure.
All right, well, see you tomorrow.
See ya.